This is Esther Lin for MMAfighting.com, and here are some of my favorite images from UFC 158. The setting for a UFC 158 open workouts made for some really fun, interestingly hued shots between the daylight streaming in from the windows of the Complexe des Jardins, multicolored stage lighting for the cage, and my own wee off-camera flash. Carlos Condit always puts on an entertaining workout for the fans, and when he started throwing flying knees, I just hoped he would do them right in the center of the cage, like so. The lens flares, the crowd behind him, the cage between us. Everything perfect. I just like this photo because it seems posed. I feel as if I'm looking at a modern interpretation of a French salon painting, a crowd gathered to hear an orator. I like the surreal, harsh lighting, Condit's faraway stare, and the claustrophobic feeling created by too many recording devices jammed together. The ceiling of the Complexe des Jardins lent a gorgeous, woven texture to every image taken from the floor. Here, I caught Johnny Hendricks in a brief glance to another photographer, a short moment of feigned ferocity between his usual smiles. The contrast of his orange gloves, the blown-out windows creating a halo around the man who would be next to challenge St-Pierre. I really love this because it shows how many fans gathered to get a glimpse of the champion. People lining the edge of every floor, watching St-Pierre sign autographs. The long lens really compacts all the space behind him, so the second and third floor of the shopping center seems so much closer. One of the most entertaining press conferences I've ever attended. This one saw St-Pierre breaking his usual calm to argue with Nick Diaz, both of them trying to speak over one another here. This room was so small and so crowded, I couldn't even get up to take this photo without a head in the way. Camera people and photographers were shoulder to shoulder, many times shouting as a stray hand or camera body would move into their shots. It was as chaotic for the media as it was for the fighters. Every once in a while, retreated to the bigger setups for the weigh-ins. I love when they flank the stage with the giant banners. And I enjoy this moment when everyone, the commissioners, ring girls, and UFC staff, all turn to look at the big screen. We all knew the face-off would be intense. And I think out of instinct, Nick Diaz turned to pose toward the crowd after facing off, and not to be outdone at home, St-Pierre did the same. The crowd went wild, camera shutters rapidly firing, everyone in the Bell Center charged and excited for tomorrow's main event. Fight night began with a lot of action. One of my favorite moments was former Strikeforce fighter Jordan Meehan making an emphatic, violent UFC debut. This photo seems posed too. Slow motion as the end came for Dan Miller. The lighting even seems odd. I didn't change anything about this photo color-wise, but for some reason it came out warmer than the rest. Meehan's face is calm, finishing Dan Miller with clinical ground and pound. I knew this fight would be exciting. Two fighters with iron chins and wild styles could not disappoint. Here's Bobby Volker landing one of many vicious knees to Patrick Cote's head, the sweat flying into the air. I thought Volker won this fight. Either way, it was raucous fun. What I enjoy here is that Johnny Hendricks is straining. He lands a punch on Condit, but his face is just as pained, body leaping forward in great effort. This was my favorite fight of the night. Probably the same for most fans. Condit won over Montreal fans in his November fight against St-Pierre, and tonight he enthralled them again with another furiously paced battle against Johnny Hendricks. Like last time, he again raised his arms as if the crowd's cheers filled him with the fire needed to push forward. I know this isn't a great photo, but it's something I don't think a lot of people saw. I don't know if it was on TV at all, but as St-Pierre was being checked by the refs before entering the cage, Nick Diaz came over to yell at him through the fence. I like Diaz's fingers, clawed into the chain link, body in a schoolyard taunting posture. Even with all the taunting, St-Pierre stayed calm and executed his game plan. He shrugged off Diaz between rounds, even after late hit attempts and ceaseless heckling. Earlier in the week, we thought St-Pierre's fervor at the press conference might indicate Diaz was in his head, but here, St-Pierre seems wholly unfazed. After months of campaigning, Johnny Hendricks finally gets the assurance he will challenge St-Pierre for the welterweight title. He's delighted, but there's a measure of nervous excitement and, of course, fatigue. The 3-round battle with Condit left Hendricks with a possible hand injury, which would push his fight for the belt back a few more months. Hendricks has been waiting for this promise to be made. Dana White announced that Nick Diaz would not be attending the press conference, citing, "He has done his part and is finished." But Nick Diaz appeared just as the presser was coming to a close, and honestly, it wouldn't feel concluded without him. Diaz asks how St-Pierre and Hendricks could sit by each other now that the fight is set, and then opines about how he probably hasn't paid taxes, ever. Hendricks, finally in the spotlight, looks annoyed. It's 2:30 in the morning, and he's ready to celebrate, rest, and bask in the news. All the while, St-Pierre chuckles, even laughing off Diaz insulting the champ's punching power. It's late in Montreal, and the media will tiredly gather their things in a minute to go back to their homes and hotel rooms right about this moment when Diaz hijacked the press conference to consider retirement. We should be so lucky to ever have another fighter who speaks his mind as openly, as unguarded as Nick Diaz. Thanks for watching. This is Esther Lin for MMAfighting.com, and we'll see you in New Jersey for Jones vs. Sonnen.